Software engineering is much bigger than algorithms, yes. To be a well-rounded engineer, you also need to know about algorithms. It's important. Lead code has its place, but you can't say you are fit and you only do bicep training. Come on, there are other form of exercises that make you more well-rounded. You can't just be curling biceps all the time and say I'm a fit person. That's not how it works at all. You know, yeah, to be well-rounded, you need to know systems design, you need knowledge of protocols, you need knowledge of architectures, you need to be able to do technical writing. Very critical. If you are ever going to survive in a FANG company, you have to be good at both reading and writing technical documentation. It's not about grinding lead code. That's so reductionist that it's getting my blood boiling. And we're live. Hi Scott, how you doing?
I'm straight. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Um, we're still pushing, still getting stuff done at work. How's things been at your end? Like, you know,
Mm, working a new contract, and we're approaching 400 subscribers. Well, I think we're at like 375, and well, I'm still thankful that Scott Blashin gave us an opportunity to interview him and share thoughts.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So we today we're going to be talking about a certain tweet from there was this whole stuff, but maybe let's start from the very beginning. So let me navigate to give me one sec. Okay, so the first tweet was from a guy named Yasin MTB. Yasin MTB, I think that's his name. He said, "You might not like it, but mindlessly grinding lead code actually does make you a good programmer." Ha, spicy. And then someone else replied and said, "Lead code is a psyop. It's a filtering mechanism designed by big tech to find googly employees, okay, like Google-like employees, the perfect rule followers. It answers one question: Are you willing to waste hundreds of hours grinding away at pointless tasks instead of actually solving real-world problems? We are not looking for thinkers. We're looking for rule followers, people who are fine with getting lost in the bureaucratic black hole of approvals and reviews, accomplishing completely nothing quarter after quarter, year over year. Contrast this with entrepreneurial thinking, where individuals are driven by a desire to solve real world problems. They are extremely goal oriented, motivated by tangible challenges. That's a very important point, and unwilling to waste time on tasks that do not lead to concrete results. The choice is yours. Do you want to rest and vest, buried in bureaucratic abyss, or do you want to seize the moment, break the mold, and build the future? Stand up, decide your destiny awaits. And then he posts a picture of Silicon Valley, the Silicon Valley guy. I can't remember his name, Big Head. And then Jamie Edward replies and he says, "Lead code and hacker rank are a false escape hatch for companies that don't know how to interview and treat programmers, and they treat programmers like code monkeys." That is very true. Sure, you may get algorithm junkies, but you actively devalue social intelligence and collaboration in your engineering culture by using it. Interesting thoughts there by Jamie Edwards. So what do you think, Scott? Like, what do you think that, like the first person alluded to, grinding lead code, mindlessly grinding lead code actually makes you a good programmer?
I think if I were to be honest with myself,
Mm-hmm.
I would see both sides. Okay.
Okay. All right.
I think your what is it, hacker rank, leak code. I think those platforms are intended to help filter people that may have higher IQs, and there's value in that, right? Problem
Mm-hmm.
solving and a way of within a fair amount of time.
Hmm.
deciphering a problem domain and coming up with a solution, there's value in that. If you have a high IQ, it doesn't just map to syntax. It maps to how you manage challenges.
Mm.
I don't think recruiters consider that, but yeah, it does. Um, However, I don't have a high IQ. I'm smart, but I don't have like a high IQ. So
That's what everybody with high IQ says. It's people with low IQ that brag about their high IQ.
okay, I don't know that either. But what?
There's a video on IQ that I find very interesting by Veritasium. I'm going to like link to the video, but it's a very important, watch if you have time to watch it. But IQ is essentially just measuring how quickly you can learn new concepts from scratch, right? That's really all it's measuring. It's not even measuring how much you know per se. So you could have a very high IQ and be dumb, right? I think the person with the highest IQ was a bouncer also. So that's number one. Number two is you can actually grind IQ tests and become good at it, but it
Okay.
doesn't mean that you have a high IQ. It actually deceives you. So IQ tests only make sense if you see it for the very first time. You're able to figure out the trick, immediately and then solve it. If you figured out the trick to the IQ test, then the IQ test loses value. It's almost like a catch 22 kind of thing, right? Now, that makes sense if you are dealing with a company like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and so on, because those environments are so massive. The amount of knowledge you need to learn have in those kind of environments is so large that you have to be learning. You have to be very quick at picking up new skills, right? So it makes sense that a company like Google wants people who are good at lead code challenges. But in reality, most developers don't write
Yeah.
backtracking algorithms or all those fancy stuff ever. That's how crazy it is. So it's almost like many companies are doing it because the likes of Google and Amazon are doing it, not realizing that it has absolutely nothing to do with, even if you get a good candidate, quote unquote, that scores all the highest lead code scores, it only tells you one of two things. One is that it only tells you that this person has done a lot of grinding on lead code to figure out all the tricks for those specific questions that show up on lead code. Or two, the person does have a high IQ, but is only good at writing like very, you know, uh, uh, writing, solving algorithm problems. But the problems you face as a developer, as a development shop, is architectural problems, protocol problems. How much knowledge do you have about an architecture? How much knowledge do you have about the protocol? How much systems design can you do? How well do you work with other people? Because let me tell you, if I'm a team lead and I'm employing developers, right, the last thing I want is to hire a rock star that just destabilizes my team. Instead, what I want to hire is a rock star, somebody who is good enough to lead other members of the team, right? I'm just letting you know, like if you hire, so take for example, there are people that I know that are very good at lead code, solving lead code challenges, right? But they aren't necessarily the best when it comes to planning out the system, coming up with solutions. Because funny enough, what works in software engineering is the dumber the solution, the better. What do I mean by that? If you can find the dumbest way of solving a problem efficiently, right? It beats whatever fantastic algorithm trick you can use to solve that same problem almost 9 out of 10 times. There are exceptions, of course, but in general, right, you want a simple solution. And simplicity isn't what lead code is measuring for. Lead code is measuring for how well you can solve the problem. It's not talking about what tactics, right? In fact, lead code punishes you if your solution, is slightly worse. If your solution has a slightly worse runtime, the elegance of the solution itself isn't factored in to your ability to solve lead code problems.
No,
So,
so your lead code, your hacker rank, or whatever those platforms are called, they're nothing but a a symptom of what's wrong with the industry. What's wrong with the industry is the people that are the gatekeepers to software development opportunities don't understand software development, and
Correct.
so they throw these they sprinkle these testing platforms that have
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with building line of business applications. They may measure a person's IQ, they may measure someone's grit in preparation for such a test, but I've said it in numerous conversations recorded and at the bar. I think the I personally think the best tool for discovering if someone is compatible or if someone has really experience is to Google their name, whether it's
Mm.
their government name or their internet handle. Google it is the most significant portion of the search results. Does that relate to how they earn their lifestyle, how they earn a living? If you Google Scott Nimrod or you Google Bizmonger, I mean, I haven't done it, but I'm willing to bet that the first page, probably the first couple of pages, are probably going to be software development related. I I I strategized that. I planned that over a decade ago, right?
Mm.
In order to increase my worth, to increase my hourly rate. And so, why am I bringing this up, Odie? I'm bringing it up because that's what I personally do to combat people wanting me to take their test, right? So, my policy is usually to turn down taking tests. If you're not a FANG company, right? If you're not Facebook, Apple, Netflix, which one am I missing? I can't spell
Amazon.
FANG. Amazon somewhere in there, Google is somewhere in there. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're not a high performing organization that is recognized, I never heard of you. Why do you want me to take your test? I'm Scott Nimrod. What I look like auditioning for a organization that I don't even know who they are. Like there goes my ego again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So usually my policy is Google me, right? Look at my Stack Overflow reputation. Look at the questions that I ask. Look at the answers that I contribute. Look at my GitHub. Now, probably three-quarters of my GitHub repos are private, right? Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
working on things that I don't want to disclose to the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, look at my technical blog. Like, there's other things that an organization or the gatekeepers, hence tech recruiters, can observe to help them make an informed decision, but most of them aren't interested in investing in someone's social proof on how they earn their living. They take this test, take this test, do this weekend project. Are you going to pay me to take this test? Are you going to pay me to do this weekend project? And the answer is no. And
No,
well,
so pause. That's where
okay,
it's wrong, actually, because
all right.
one of the things that I really liked, where I used to work before was we would give you a weekend project, but we would also pay you for that weekend project, right? You would be paid.
I've never heard of that ever.
Oh, happens. Yeah, I theorem. That's what we did. They would pay you. You would be paid. Like you'd be paid like roughly $500. Which
Are we talking
is
about within the United States economy, or we're talking about European or Nigeria?
United States company. I'm
Okay.
telling you, that company. See, listen. Very few companies get it right, but you see, theorem, they are top notch. And the reason they did, I think, at first they used to do the whole hacker rank thing, but they stopped doing it because, like Jamie rightly said, you're just bringing in algorithm people who aren't necessarily engineers. So one of the funny comments to that, let me see if I can find it. Somebody said something like, somebody said, you know, grinding lead code problems is the person said like grinding lead code problems to become a good software engineer is like doing deadlifts to become better at piano. So and it's kind of true because unless you are Microsoft, Google, Facebook, you aren't writing advanced algorithms, right? More often than not, what you're building is microservices. You're doing systems thinking. You have to know about protocols. You have to
Yeah,
understand,
like from my
like,
experience, it's been these tests from my experience, and I hope I'm wrong. have been focused on like computer science and like what's the big O notation of this algorithm, and like the stuff is valid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it should be valid for the type of job that you're applying for,
Yeah.
right? Is the
Yeah.
job that you're applying for, when you're writing up documentation, are you literally including big O notation in regards to the performance of it? Are you going to design meetings and big O notation is what you're defending for the algorithm that you came up with or what someone else came up with? I've
Yeah.
never been in an organization for a line of business applications where those conversations are had, ever.
Yeah. So there is this quote. Let me look for it. Linus Torvalds made, and it points the problem that we are facing. Yeah, where he was talking about like pi quotes. Yeah, pi equal to 3.14 works for 99% of the use cases, and in the 1% where it's not good enough, right? Like, who cares? Right? Because if you think about it, most solutions have trade-offs. So yes, you may write the best algorithm, it makes so much sense, but in fact, let me even tell you something that I learned, right? Because I was also a lead code junkie at one point. But something that you know dawned on me was when you have when they say, oh, what's the big O notation of this particular algorithm you've written, it's usually targeted at time complexity only. But there are other forms of complexity. There is space complexity. So what tends to happen is that algorithms that perform better in the time complexity actually perform worse in the space complexity. Do you get what I mean? So
Nope. What space complexity?
space
I
complete
understand the concept of time, but what space?
good.
The
So
amount of resources that it takes up?
exactly the amount of memory it consumes
Okay.
while running,
Oh, I
right?
got the one right. All right, cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The amount of memory the amount of memory your algorithm is taking while running, right? So, for example, if you use a binary tree, that's more space you are taking as opposed to iterating over a finite array. Your binary tree, by definition, would be bigger because it has higher dimensions, right, over the same set of data. That's just an example, and there is so yes, you get very fast searching through a binary tree, granted, but what you gain in speed you are losing in space. And for some, knowing what those trade-offs are what make a good engineer, because a good engineer is able to move away from just the algorithms themselves and say what is going to give me the most bang per buck, right? And sometimes when you are measuring speed, right, when you're measuring speed, this, and you hear this a lot from people who do benchmarking, right, is don't try to micro benchmark the whole thing, because you may find out that when you are optimizing one small aspect, in the grand scheme of things that particular aspect is irrelevant. And these are things that just grinding away at lead code is never going to teach you. So yeah, so back to what I was saying earlier about the company I was working for, and how you know they moved away from lead code and stuff like that, to the point where now you collaborate, right? They give you a project, very simple project to do, and you'd be amazed at how many lead coders fail those projects because they haven't built things before. They haven't been part of like major projects. They just came out of school, grinded lead code, and they feel like they should earn like a senior engineer salary, whereas they really don't know much about what it takes, what actually building software looks like. Yeah, that's my. I know I've been rambling, but it gets my blood boiling. Maybe I should, maybe a better maybe I should just explain my own reply, because I replied Jamie's tweet where I said something like, software engineering is much bigger than algorithms. Yes. To be a well-rounded engineer, you also need to know about algorithms. It's important. Lead code has its place, but you can't say you are fit and you only do bicep training. Come on, there are other form of exercises that make you more well-rounded. You can't just be curling biceps all the time and say I'm a fit person. That's not how it works at all. you know Yeah, to be well rounded, you need to know systems design, you need knowledge of protocols, you need knowledge of architectures, you need to be able to do technical writing. Very critical. If you are ever going to survive in a FANG company, you have to be good at both reading and writing technical documentation. It's not about grinding lead code. That's so reductionist that it's getting my blood boiling. You also need to know how to collaborate with others, right? You also need to be able to write code that others can read, because sometimes when you want a piece of code to be performant, yes, it is good in those particular, maybe there's a hotspot in your application that needs very fast algorithms. Yes, in those places you can put on your lead code hat and become the data structure monster that you've trained to be. And in those niche areas it is very important. But for the most part, it's not about how performant a piece of code is. It's can other people read it, understand it, and make changes to it. So you see this happen a lot. If you're writing libraries, yes, go ahead, go ham, use your binary search trees, go as crazy as you want to be. But if you want to write like main line of business applications that other people are going to work with and collaborate on, you have to write code that is easy to understand, because more often than not, those are not the areas where that lead code mindset is going to really help you. you know yeah, I think I should slow down now before I explode. I don't know, it just hits so close to home, right? Because I used to feel, especially considering where my background, I used to feel inadequate, right? So grinding lead code was a way for me to measure up, right? Being able to answer lead code questions, being able to solve those kind of problems was a way for me to justify that I am not an imposter. Does that
So,
make sense?
so here we go, Odie. You,
Yeah.
you know what we haven't discussed,
Well.
and it may not apply to me, even though it's part of my policy. I think I talked to Feathers about this before. Um, think about the people that are willing to take that test because they need a job, and think about the people that they have so much experience. They're the 10x developer, right?
Hmm.
If I'm a 2x developer, these people are 10x developers, and they're like, I'm John Doe. What you talking about? I need to take your test. I wrote a book on this. I I I write MSDN articles. Like you want me to take your test, right? I go to GitHub. I wrote this library that has 1 million downloads. What you mean you want me to take your test? Um, there's people out there where like okay, tech recruiters like we're smart, right? If they want to work with us, they gotta take our tests. Well, and that's valid, right?
Hmm.
But you're excluding the very minute or very small percentage of people that are extremely gifted, extremely talented. Again, it's a very small percentage. Why would they audition for you if they're already recognized as high performing? This reminds me of so Facebook still required. What's the that one developer that is well known? He was working for Facebook for a while. He was part of that before. I think it was even
Okay.
before the Agile movement. It was like it was a small group of them that were. I can't think of the name, but he was a big TDD guy.
Oh, oh, oh. Uh,
Okay, you know who I'm talking about.
Robert
Um,
Martin. Was it Robert Martin?
no, it wasn't
No,
Robert
no,
Martin,
no.
but you're getting close.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's in. Yeah.
it was I forgot the I can't think of his name right now, but I
Okay.
mean they were publishing books on software development practices like 20 years ago, right? Which
Mm.
doesn't seem like a long time to me, but But anyway, I remember watching like a YouTube video, and I'm sorry I can't come up with his name right now. I was watching a YouTube video in which he was saying that Facebook's process in order to work there was you had to you had to take their tests, and he was like, "Why would I have to take the test? All the accomplishments that I have, all the contributions to the software development industry that I've made, you want me to take your test?" And he said that he had to humble himself and take the test, or else he wasn't going to work at Facebook. Um, but there's a lot of other people where, again, if you're not Facebook, Google, Netflix, you're just a no-name consulting firm or a no-name utility company or mortgage company. It's like you want me to jump through hoops to audition for you, but you're not willing to invest or at least investigate who I am by just simply Googling my name. Like, no, thank you. Like,
Mm.
I'll sit on the bench for another couple weeks until someone that actually loses logic will research me and realize that I am an asset to what they're trying to accomplish.
There was something that was very telling recently. It goes back to the video we mentioned about like the similarities between chess and software development, right?
Hmm.
So in chess, there's this thing called puzzles, right? So puzzles are one of the ways. It's kind of like it's exactly like lead code problems, right? So you have, oh my God, the analogies are just flooding in right now. It's kind of like lead code problems where they just show you a position and then they tell you, okay, this is mate in two or mate in three, and we need you to tell us what the next correct move or the correct sequence should be.
Tactics.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much tactics, right? And just like with lead code, right, I grind those a lot. In fact, I'm above 2000 in puzzles, but that doesn't translate to my ability to play the game, right? And in fact, the what was even more telling, in fact, if I find the clip of it, I will also insert it into the video, was where they asked the world champion, the freaking world champion, the GOAT, Magnus Carlsen, what he thinks about puzzles. And he said that he's not good at them, that for the longest time, he has struggled with solving puzzles. But if those puzzles were to show up in the context of a real game, he would figure out a way to solve it.
Magnus is going to take our basic test for 100 endgames you must know. And how do you feel about taking some basic theoretical endgames? You were saying before we went live here that you weren't sure about your theoretical endgame status.
I wasn't sure about my theoretical endgame status, and I know that this is probably the only book that my father's ever studied. And I think he could do at least some of them. So in that sense, I'm optimistic, but I don't know. Like if there are questions about the square, for instance, I never learned about the square.
Okay.
I mean, that's a true story. I never learned about the square.
Got it.
So, I mean, I understand it, but I couldn't exactly recount what the rule is. So
okay, so Henrik Carlson may be in a better position to tell us about the rule of the square, for instance.
But then again, I'm better at chess, and I'm a bigger name, so that's why I'm here instead.
And that is precisely my experience, right? In the sense that if you just tell me this is this programming problem, come and solve it, more often than not, I may struggle with the lead code question. But if I'm in deliver mode, like deliver something meaningful, I don't mind spending 6, 8, 10 hours figuring out the solution to a problem. But once it comes as this trivial problem that doesn't really have any context around it, it's just, the why is missing. So it tends to demoralize me in terms of finding a solution for that problem. I don't know if you've experienced that before.
So let's bring up an example. All right. What's the value of FizzBuzz?
Good point. Yes. Good point.
To me,
Mm-hmm.
FizzBuzz, I honestly believe only tests that you've heard of. What is it? The modulus operator?
Correct.
Is that really valuable? If you don't know about the modulus operator, it's a high probability that you're not going to do well on a FizzBuzz test. Is that
I don't
really?
I don't even think you can solve it without a modulus operator.
Well, a modulus operator is a shortcut for just, I thought, for this shows my ignorance of division
Uh-huh.
and processing the remainders and division
Yeah,
again.
but what I'm saying is, can you write fizzballs in a language that doesn't have the modulus operator? I don't think you can. So
Y- You can, it's just going to be very long-handed because you're still working with
but
remainders, right?
it's not going to catch all cases, right? There will still be exceptions. So even if you had like the longest if statement in the world, there will still be cases you
Yeah.
don't catch. So
What FizzBuzz does is it tests your
it's
knowledge of the
of
modulus
the model.
operator.
That's
And
it.
is that really helpful to what a business needs?
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. You're right. You're right.
We finally agree on something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So here's my argument, and
Hmm.
maybe FizzBuzz was an extreme example,
Okay.
but is how important is trivia to vetting a developer for them being technically compatible with the type of work that your organization is performing? And I would say like it's dude, like you can teach probably a sixth grader like the concept of modulus with probably within like less than 5 minutes and be good to go. So
Correct.
again, like are the gatekeepers such as tech recruiters and HR, are they out of touch with software development requirements in order to perform a function?
No,
Uh,
I think it goes back to what we said. What I, you remember we discussed this when we were talking about the whole Kavana firing people, and I was saying that people are not numbers on a spreadsheet, right? You can't just replace them. They are non-fungible. I think the whole lead code stuff came out of the rise of the need for HR to be able to give scores to people, right? To give fixed values to individuals, right? So a way for them to just quickly run a sieve and just say filter 5 and below or something like that, right? Or filter 5 and above, and just segment it. It was
yeah,
a shortcut to try to distill everything that is someone's experience into a single number.
this goes back into was it our last episode? One of our episodes where I continue to vent about how middle managers really need to be engineers, but instead they're accountants. And then
Mm,
so they use metrics that don't really serve the outcomes that
that
the
they are
shop
looking for.
needs,
Correct.
that the shop
Correct.
needs, right? And
Correct.
so that kind of relates to your recent statement of like these tests, right? Where it it comes from up top of hey, we need a metric that will serve as a filter for us to pick from a talent pool. Because right now we have everybody applying for this position, both U.S. citizens and people from other countries. Like
Hmm.
what filters can we put that we can work from? And yeah, it makes sense that non-engineers would rely on those types of tests to
Yeah.
as a net.
Yeah, because again, like Jamie said, they don't understand what software engineering is and are just looking for code monkeys, you know, because they think, oh, the more code monkeys we have, the faster we can deliver whatever software it is we're working on, you know, which is which is just silly. But yeah, I think you know enough ranting for today. If you guys enjoyed this, please let us know. Let us know your thoughts on this topic as well. Do you think lead code is actually, do you think grinding away mindlessly, let's be very specific, at lead code makes you a good programmer? Because we certainly don't. It makes you a good lead code grinder. It doesn't make you a good programmer. But yeah, just let us know your thoughts below. If you like this, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it, and let us know your comments. Scott, anything you want to say?
We need to get to 400.
All right. On to the march to 400 it is.
Subscribers. Take care.
Yeah, take care. Bye.